Hello, and thank you for tuning into this Endurati studio interview at Asian Utility Week 2016. I'm Denise, and with me we have Tony Valdez. He's Vice President, Head of Marketing of Customer Solutions and Product Development at Meralco.
Right.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you, Denise.
So in this session we're going to be specifically speaking about energy efficiency and developing customer solutions in order to attain this. And I think let's just delve straight into the whole energy efficiency strategy. So it's obviously another way to curb generation needs, which is pretty much growing, I think, globally.
Correct.
How is Meralco dealing, creating the strategy to attaining better energy efficiency? What are the plans at Meralco?
Well, Meralco in the past 3 years are actively communicating with customers on how to save on the demand side, meaning from their own households, businesses, even corporate customers. We're encouraging them to save, right? So the reason for this basically is especially coming from the insight that actually the standard of living in the Philippines isn't yet up to global standards. Appliance ownership is fairly low. For example, air conditioners in a very hot country is 25% ownership in our franchise area, which is already the city center, right? And so there's a 75% who are sweltering in heat, right? And even refrigerator ownership is at about 80%. So there's 20% more that can buy refrigerators, and the rest are in between, right? So you can imagine, that's why we said, and we know from consumer research that there's really a strong desire to buy more appliances to upgrade their lifestyle. And we know that we monitor the households where they're able to save, and we know that the moment that they save, the first thing that they buy is an appliance, right? They buy a refrigerator, they buy an air conditioner, they buy 2 more fans because it's hot, right? The past 3 months have seen unprecedented growth in consumption, largely because of the heat, and also underpinned by a very low inflation and a very powerful economy. We're now, I think, in the top 4 or top 5 in the world in terms of speed of growth. So, given all of that, Meralco is actively communicating with customers. We've put up a power lab. It's a lab where we test appliance ownership. How much does a fan cost in terms of hour per use? And we're communicating not to the engineers, because I did a global survey of how they did this labels for every appliance, and we were talking to the plain housewife. We're telling her a refrigerator costs you 20 pesos per day. That's roughly less than 50 cents US, right? So she knows when to budget things, right? So we tell her, for example, we know, for example, air conditioners. Did you know that most housewives way overestimate the cost of an air conditioner per hour? They think it's about $1. And when I tell them it's about more like 11 or 12 US cents, they're totally blown away, right? Because it will blow you away, right? If you have, in the Philippines, by the way, the average household size is 5. That means there's always a child. So a mom would always want the child to fall asleep quickly, and the best way to do that is in a really comfortable environment, right? So the mom can say, I can afford 3 hours of electricity, 3 hours of air conditioning a day, so why not, right? Yeah. So those are the things that we communicate to customers so that we upgrade their lifestyle. I think it's a win-win. The customers win, they know what they're doing, they can budget, they don't feel like they were put in a bad deal. Meralco wins. There's a slight trade-off in that for a while maybe consumption might go down, but in the long run it will move up, and we've proven that in a panel of households. So all of this is research based. So we kind of understand what we're doing, and that's how I got approvals to do all of these things.
Fantastic. So you're talking a lot about communicating with the average housewife.
Correct.
How are you communicating to your consumers? How are you actually getting your message across to them? Okay,
good question. So across all platforms, one, definitely social media. We have by the way, we were awarded by, I forgot the name of this global awards company, but they awarded us as one of the top 10 in terms of the global utilities in terms of social media presence. It's called Social Bakers, now I remember. Oh, right. Social Bakers told us, and this is in our annual report, we're in the top 10 utilities that communicate with its customers on social media. We have a Facebook page where you can complain, rant, and ask anything basically, and we'll reply to you in the next 15 minutes. And on our Facebook page, Facebook put their response very quickly. So that was their label of our utility. So we're on social media, we're on brick and mortar. When you receive your bill, I have a flyer for you. So, and it depends on the segmentation that we do. So for example, if you're a low consuming customer and we know that maybe you can't afford an air conditioner just yet, I may have tied up with a manufacturer for electric fans instead, and I'll give you a promotion. For those who can afford it more, I have an air conditioning promotion, and so on and so forth. So we segment it. So I'm in brick and mortar, I'm in social media, I'm on mass media, I'm on TV and print, right? So I'm on TV every month about energy saving tips, because every month our rates move. So I need to communicate that. So it moves up, I don't know, 5 US cents or so. And then that's actually just the first 5 seconds. The next 25 seconds is me telling you how to be a better consumer. And we also, we give them energy saving tips. We debunk urban myths. And we see these urban myths in social media. For example, have you heard of energy saving devices? So for example, energy saving devices, they don't work. And it costs you 50 bucks, right? And so to disabuse customers of the myth, we actually disassemble it and we show them, look what's inside. It's not even worth $3, right? It's all gobbledygook, right? So, and we test it using sophisticated equipment that engineers will understand. We work with government. When we do that, we invite the Department of Trade and Industry, the Department of Energy, for them to attest to what we're doing. So we are very aggressive, almost in your face, if you want to call it like that.
How have the energy efficiency levels decreased, and have they, and by how much, ever since the strategy has been put into place?
Right. So we monitor about 100 households, like a panel, right? So they're able to save anywhere from 5 to 15%, right? Based on these tips, right? But as I said, they quickly buy a new appliance.
Okay.
So in the end, in my mind, they up their standard of living. We cannot put them in the same panel anymore because they're entirely different consuming household. So it's effective to the extent that they're able to save initially, but in the end they buy new appliances. So in the end, actually, I think that's why I said it's a win for all, because they don't feel bad about buying that new appliance or spending more on their electricity, right? It's their standard of living has increased. This is what Harvard Business Review calls a shared value, meaning the business wins, the customer wins, and society wins.
Absolutely,
right?
It's going to be a sustainable solution.
Correct.
Right.
So it's society.
What have been the biggest challenges of the whole energy efficiency strategy at Meralco, and how have you overcome these challenges?
Right. Well, two things. One is I come from a FMCG background, fast-moving consumer goods. I came from Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson. So not exactly an engineer, right? So my role in marketing is still not fully understood, and so it continues to be a personal advocacy within Meralco. And also, I think also in terms of getting budgets, so far we've been successful. I'm lucky I have a very supportive management team who understand and see the value of communicating with customers. We also saw how Meralco's relationship with the public has changed, where before we're like the whipping boy and everybody's angry every time the rates are increased. We've seen a dramatic decrease. As a matter of fact, it has almost disappeared. When we went every month on TV stating these are just the facts about the rates and giving them the tip, all the animosity on media has gone because we've engaged the media itself. So they began to understand, look, they're being very transparent. One of the things that told us about when we did the research as well, one of the things that customers really wanted from any utility company is always transparency, right? That they know that they're not being fooled, and that instead of asking, they're told up front. So those are the things that we do.
Fantastic. Right. It was one of my questions actually about customer engagement, so that answers that for me beautifully.
Yes.
At Meralco, how are they using digitalization to improve, reaching out to customers, customer engagement?
Right. Actually,
specifically for energy efficiency?
Yes. The best way that customers can save is if they know how much they're spending. And we've done a pilot of 25,000 customers on our advanced metering infrastructure project. So these 25,000 customers are on prepaid, Denise. Right? So that means every day I SMS them. Every day between 8 a.m. and 12 noon, you know what your balance is, so you know whether you need to load, and you know what you spent yesterday. So few people understand how much they spend every day. Now these people know, right? So for example, if you're a mom and if you had, like, say 4 children, like in the Philippines, and one of them had a pajama party last night, right? So then it may happen because that night the aircon was on, the TV was on, the popcorn maker was on, everything was on, that your consumption for the day probably doubled. So as the mom, so that when you go back to your budget, you talk to the kids and say, okay kids, normally we'd do an hour of TV, 3 hours of TV every night. We're gonna cut that down to 2 or to 1. And by the way, when you're asleep, when you wake up, the aircon will be off because I would have switched it off. So that we're back on budget, right? So
there's no surprises.
There's no surprise whatsoever. So we want to actually propagate. By the way, in the Philippines, 91% of all telco mobile phone customers are on prepaid. So people know how to load, and they load at every street corner. There's a store that sells load. So, and that's how our prepaid system is enabled. I'm told it's a first in the world. There are many prepaid systems in the world. There are those where you buy cards and then you key it into a meter. Ours is not like that at all. It's like buying a load for a mobile phone. You buy it in every mom and pop store at every street corner. So, so if we're able to propagate that, then I think people will be empowered to save. You would know every day how much you spend. It's really up to you whether you could afford it or not. So to me, that's the most powerful.
So revenue might dip a little bit with regards to more energy efficient, consumption. Will Meralco be looking at other revenue streams to maybe try and recover this bit of a dip, or isn't it a big enough dip for you to worry about another revenue stream?
Right. Today, the infrastructure for advanced meter infrastructure is something that we're asking the Energy Regulatory Commission, and they've somehow agreed to it, that we're going to put it in the rate asset base. So in other words, it's included in everybody's bill. But we've also shown in that experiment I told you about for 25,000 customers, that the cost of it, the impact to the bill, is less than 1%, right? On the other hand, these 25,000 customers I was telling you about, today after an 18-month pilot, the average savings is 18%. And therefore, if you save, if I add 1% to your bill but you're able to save 18, would you buy it or not? You would, 99.99% of the time. So we've proven that the experience of the customer, the larger society, will be very, very positive. And at the same time, I told you about the social value, because at the same time, in the Philippines, there's still a number who steal power, right? We found out that there was this one incident where about 800 houses burned. Really, really sad. What's even worse is that, and this was caught on TV, and the reason why the houses burned was because of one person who was stealing electricity and it was unsafe. The following day, the same TV station said, the house that started it, the household head was lynched the following day. He was dead, right? So, fast forward 18 months later, a lot of them are on prepaid. We asked those same people who were stealing power, and they said, you know, we're really happy with prepaid. And they even said, so I asked them, with the regulator, I asked them, why do you want to, with stealing it's free, with prepaid you're paying, right? And the answer is, well, I'm not afraid of fires. I'm not afraid of being lynched. Neighbors don't look down on me. And so the regulator said, what that person didn't say was, she got her dignity back, right? Which is very true. So, so that's why we think that in our survey it says maybe 30% would take a prepaid. The rest, the bigger customers probably will not. They'll stay on postpaid. But I think it's probably going to be bigger, because on mobile, 91% I told you is on prepaid. So, and nevertheless for postpaid, we can do the same. We can SMS them every day. But I think with postpaid, we can make it available on the net, right? On the net, and there are many utilities that are doing this already.
Is that part of Meralco's other big plans? I mean, what other big plans do you have up your sleeve?
So definitely, so aside from prepaid, where you're offering an enhanced postpaid service, which is basically the same as prepaid, but you don't need to load. But the information will be there for you to see. So every time there's a spike, you would know, right? Because in the Philippines, for those in the gated communities, these are the higher consuming households, their fear is when they go away, all the house helps and the drivers and the kids, that they're happily in the house, all air cons on, etc. So the fear of the rich housewife, right? But with an enhanced postpaid service, you can tell by appliance which ones are on, which ones are off, and you can switch it on and off on your mobile phone, right? So we've seen that demonstrated here in Utility Week, and that's part of our roadmap.
All right, Tony. What advice would you give other utilities, especially when it comes to reaching out to customers and improving energy efficiency?
Right. I have an FMCG bias, obviously, and I have this huge thing about research, right? So and pilot testing, so that you get to know what the customer reaction is, because research can tell you maybe a first glance. A pilot will tell you will give you the depth. So, for example, when I told you that customers are saving 18%, it's incontrovertible data that regulators, the general public, will believe you for, because it's meter data, it's hard data, it's not a concept, right? So, and that's the way we've been doing this. It's not as if our pilots were perfect. We needed to do some tweaks here and there so that the service would be something that customers would really want, right? So I guess my biggest advice is know the customer, right? So know them in depth, and we were there out in the field. We were with households interviewing them. We have testimonies on video. So and I'll show them some of them today.
I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Tony, for joining us today. Really enjoyed the interview. And thank you very much for tuning in to this session. If you want further insight into Asian Utility Week, please have a look at the other videos on engerati.com. Thank you.